A dentist being tried here in Denver has been found guilty of murdering his wife while on a safari in Africa.
Prosecutors say he killed his wife for insurance money.
Voice of a woman who was screaming.
She was lying down here.
I killed my wife for you.
Why did he want to kill his wife?
Related to Bianca, but Dr. Rudolph.
On October 11, 2016, a wealthy American dentist named Dr. Larry Rudolph and his wife Bianca were packing up to return to the United States from their trip to Zambia, South Africa. The couple had been together for 30 years, and they loved going on big game hunting trips. Bianca's dream was to hunt a leopard, and they had chosen Kifue National Park for their latest adventure. However, on their last day, Bianca was not able to shoot a leopard. That evening, as they did after every hunting trip, the Rudolphs unloaded their rifles and retired to their bungalow. But as the couple readied themselves for the long journey home, something went horribly awry. The sounds of a gunshot and Bianca's piercing scream shattered the tranquility of the hunting camp. The guides rushed to the Rudolphs' cabin where they found a heartbreaking scene. Bianca, Larry's wife of 30 years, lay dead on the floor, shot through the heart. Inconsolable with grief, Larry frantically ran to a nearby river, threatening to take his own life. "My wife has committed suicide. I want to kill myself also," he cried as narrated by a guide, trying to talk Larry down. Eventually, the guides were able to calm Larry and bring him back to the camp, but the circumstances surrounding Bianca's death were shrouded in mystery. Was it a terrible accident, as Larry claimed? Or was it something more sinister? A calculated act of violence with Larry himself as the perpetrator? The truth would not be easily uncovered. Some killers are caught and brought to justice, while others manage to escape, living out their days in infamy. Before the tragic events that befell the Rudolphs, their life together had started out much like any other couple. After a college romance, Larry and Bianca married, had 2 children, and built a successful dental practice together called the Three Rivers Dental Group. The practice's specialty was sedation dentistry, which allowed fearful patients to undergo procedures while completely under anesthesia, waking up as if it had all been a bad dream. The service proved incredibly popular and the business expanded rapidly. As the Rudolphs grew older, they began to take more time for themselves. Bianca stepped back from the day-to-day management of the practice, and Larry hired a striking blonde woman named Lori Maliron as an executive administrator. Larry also developed a new passion, big game hunting. He joined a hunting club and began taking frequent trips to exotic locations around the world to pursue his new hobby. For years, Larry Rudolph had held the prestigious position of president of Safari Club International. However, this period of professional success did not last. Back at the Three Rivers dental practice, the atmosphere had become increasingly strained. Larry was known to have a temper, and his colleagues would jokingly refer to his sudden fits of rage as going Rudolph. Then, in a stunning turn of events, Safari Club International's relationship with Dr. Rudolph came to an end after allegations of misconduct and adultery were made against him. Facing these allegations, Larry sued the hunting club for defamation, but in the end, he was ousted from his leadership role, and a settlement was reached between the two parties. The exact nature of the misconduct and adultery allegations was unclear, but it was reported that in 2004, Larry had begun an affair with his office manager Lori Maliron. This meant that by the time Bianca was killed in Kifue National Park, Larry and Lori had been carrying on their illicit relationship for over a decade. Was this long-running affair a potential motive for Larry to murder his wife? When Larry Rudolph returned to the bungalow, his story about what had happened to Bianca had changed. Instead of claiming she had committed suicide, he now said her death was an accident, that she had shot herself while packing away her gun. Spencer Kokoma, the hunting guide who had just seen Bianca empty her rifle of all its ammunition, questioned this account. As Spencer noted, it was clear there was no ammunition in it. That's one other thing that made me suspect somebody loaded it. If Bianca's gun was completely unloaded, as Spencer had seen with his own eyes, how could she have accidentally shot herself? Larry and Spencer went to the neighborhood police station to report Bianca's death because of this discrepancy. There, Larry told the police commander a different story, that he had heard gunshots and a scream, and then found Bianca lying in a pool of blood. Based on this account, the investigators dispatched to the cabin found Larry's explanation of an accidental death to be believable. The shotgun was found lying 3 feet away from Bianca's lifeless body, having apparently been fired from inside the soft gun case. Larry claimed that he had tried to resuscitate his wife, and the Zambian authorities found no reason to doubt his account. Satisfied with Larry's explanation, they quickly filed the case as an accidental death and released their findings just 2 days later. There would be no evidence linking Larry to the incident. However, he did not immediately tell his children, Anna and Julian, about the tragic accident. In fact, his daughter Anna only found out about Bianca's death nearly a week later. Desperate to know the details of how the shooting occurred, back in the United States, at Larry's dental practice, the Three Rivers Dental Group, employees were discouraged from discussing what had happened. Larry never spoke about Bianca's death, instructing everyone not to talk about it, which raised suspicions among the staff. 2 weeks after the tragedy, friends and family gathered in Arizona to mourn Bianca's passing and begin the healing process. But as time went on, cracks began to appear in Larry's account of what had happened. The hunting guide, Spencer, had arrived at the cabin just 15 seconds after hearing the gunshot. However, when he entered, he encountered a fully dressed Larry Rudolph, a detail that seemed to contradict Larry's claim that he had been in the bath when the incident occurred. Would Larry really have had enough time to get fully dressed, including putting on his shoes, before rushing out? The account from the hunting guide, Spencer, contradicted the story Larry had told the local police. According to the authorities, Larry had claimed he was only wearing a towel when Spencer entered the cabin. To some, the scene reeked of foul play. Yet the local papers had reported Bianca's death as an accidental shooting, and the Zambian investigators had allowed her body to be cremated just days after her passing, preventing any further forensic examination. This cremation was particularly suspicious as Bianca was reportedly opposed to it due to her religious belief. One of Bianca's friends eventually contacted the FBI, convinced that something was amiss and that this was no mere accident. The friend disclosed some additional details that had not been previously revealed, that Larry and Bianca often argued about money, and that Larry had been carrying on an affair with his office manager, Lori Milleran. These revelations suggested that Bianca's death may have been driven by two of the oldest motives in history: sex and money. However, with Bianca's body already cremated and the Zambian investigation closed, it seemed there was little that could be done. But just before the cremation, the consular chief at the US Embassy had taken matters into his own hands. He measured Bianca's gunshot wound and took numerous photographs for investigators to study without Larry's knowledge. Although the investigation would be a slow and arduous process, given the distance and the 5-year delay before the FBI could reach out to witnesses in Zambia, the consular chief's actions had ensured that there would be at least some physical evidence to examine. Investigators conducted a series of tests to determine the plausibility of Larry's account. They used a shotgun similar to the one Bianca had allegedly fired to perform a drop test, where the weapon was loaded with a dummy round and dropped several times to see if it would accidentally discharge. The gun never went off during this test. Furthermore, the forensic evidence contradicted the idea of a self-inflicted wound. The photos of Bianca's gunshot wound showed the shotgun pellets were roughly 2.5 inches wide, indicating the weapon had been about 3 feet away when it fired. This ruled out a contact wound or suicide. Even without the scientific analysis, it seemed improbable that an experienced hunter like Bianca would have accidentally shot herself while putting away her weapon. None of the evidence seemed to fit Larry's narrative. As the investigators pieced together the puzzle, a clearer picture began to emerge, one that cast doubt on Larry's account and suggested something more sinister may have occurred in that remote Zambian cabin. Upon Bianca's death, Larry received nearly $5 million from 9 different insurance policies, providing a significant financial incentive. But there were also signs of a more personal motive. Within just a few weeks of Bianca's passing, Larry's mistress Lori Milleran had moved into his luxurious home in Paradise Valley, Arizona. The pair then began jet-setting around the country, traveling between Pennsylvania, Paradise Valley, and even Larry's vacation home in Cabo San Lucas, Mexico. It was at this Cabo San Lucas property that Larry Rudolph's reckoning finally caught up to him. Over 5 years after Bianca's death, Larry was arrested and extradited to the United States to stand trial for his wife's murder, as well as mail fraud charges for collecting on her life insurance. Lori Milleran was also arrested and charged with perjury, accessory to murder, and obstruction, stemming from her testimony before a grand jury. Prosecutors claimed she had lied under oath about her relationship with Larry and their conversations after Bianca's death. The arrests of both Larry and Lori suggested that federal investigators had finally amassed enough evidence to bring this long-running case to trial. With the financial and personal motives laid bare, as well as the questionable circumstances surrounding Following Bianca's death, the pieces of the puzzle were starting to come together. However, the final verdict would rest in the hands of a jury, who would have to weigh the evidence and determine if Larry Rudolph was indeed guilty of murdering his wife. Despite the charges against them, the bond between Larry Rudolph and his mistress Lori Milliron remained strong. Lori even continued to manage Larry's dental practices while he was in prison, and she was under house arrest. As the trial commenced in Denver, Colorado, prosecutors asserted that Lori had grown tired of being the other woman and had started pressuring Larry to leave his wife Bianca. However, the defense attorneys denied this claim, arguing it was fabricated by a disgruntled former employee of the dental practice. The defense also refuted the idea that Larry had pushed to have Bianca's body cremated to cover up evidence, citing a directive in their will that both of them be cremated upon their deaths. But these arguments were not enough to convince the jury of Larry's innocence. During the trial, more damning allegations surfaced about Larry's past business dealings. The prosecution alleged that Larry had a history of insurance fraud, claiming he had intentionally shot himself in the thumb during a previous Zambian hunting trip in order to cash in on millions in disability insurance. The prosecution also accused Larry of fraud within his dental practice, alleging that he would purposefully drill holes in his patients' teeth while they were under anesthesia. These holes would then turn into cavities, ensuring the unsuspecting patients would need more dental work and generate more revenue for the practice. These revelations about Larry's past unethical practices likely made it easier for the jury to believe that he would be capable of shooting his wife Bianca through the heart with a shotgun, then trying to stage it as an accident by placing the gun back in its case. Larry's mistress, Lori Milliron, received 17 years in prison for her role in the cover-up. Both Larry and Lori are currently appealing their convictions. Zambian guide Spencer Kakoma expressed satisfaction with the American investigation, saying, "He wanted to escape, but they managed to corner him." Today, Larry and Bianca's daughter, Anna, runs the family's Three Rivers Dental Group, following in her father's footsteps. However, both Anna and Julian undoubtedly still mourn the loss of their beloved mother, with Anna's friend describing Bianca as the best mum. A very good person, very wholesome and kind. The trail of devastation left by Dr. Larry Rudolph's actions is profound, a cautionary tale of how a small seed of moral decay, planted in the form of greed and lust, can ultimately lead to the destruction of lives and families. Regardless of the source, Larry's choices had far-reaching consequences, ripping a hole in his own family and community that can never be fully repaired. This story of Rudolph's is more than just a memory, it's a call to action. Share to spread the word, and subscribe for more stories that matter.